Starting lesson 2 of How Success Thinks. Now, just to recap real brief about from last week. Last week we spoke about a very, very important about the inner will and the outer will, which the inner will is really our inner will. That's really what we want to, live in life, and everyone wrote down what their inner will was. The inner will is usually the important stuff. Being happy, family, good friends, a relationship with God, speaking the truth, all the good qualities, as we call them, the eulogy qualities. And then the outer will is things that we have to do. We have to work, we got to earn a living, we have to have a house, we got to deal with materialism, and so on and so forth. Now, what happens is when you're focused on your inner will and the outer will is just serving the inner will, that's a good life. Because you have to deal with the reality of life. What happens is when you start making the outer will the important part of your life, that's when all the problems start. When all of a sudden work starts becoming more important than family. Now, obviously, no one does that intentionally, but all of a sudden you get caught in the rat race of trying to, make some more money and to be more successful, which is okay, which is good. But as long as you're not robbing from your inner will, then, and as we discussed last week, a lot of people had a paradigm shift in really, oh my gosh, that's my inner will, this is the life I want to lead up to. But everyone has books, right? Everyone has a book? Yeah, okay. That's the life I want to lead up to. So if I want to lead up to this life, what am I doing? What plan do I have in place to be able to, I can get to live that life? Now, so what happens is that when we have this new plan of these things that we want to change, we're basically in the global idea, and everyone had obviously their details. The global idea was to really live a life that's in line with my inner will. I'm not compromising my inner will, and I really want to live this type of lifestyle. So then one person can say, well, that's not realistic, it's not possible, how's it going to work, and so on and so forth. So today's lesson, lesson 2, is actually called Mission Possible. That this mission that we have, what's the new mission? What's the mission? The mission is to live a life that's in line with my inner will. That mission is possible. Well, you're going to say, well, all your reasons why it's not possible, it is possible. And the key point of this lesson, as you can see, it says on the screen in red, developing, what you have in the book too, develop a success mindset. So if you're able to develop a success mindset, that will allow you to make your mission in life possible. So again, the goal is that the mission should be possible. The way to do it is by developing a success mindset. Okay, so that is basically the goal of today's class. We're going to explore some of the struggles that people have with creating and developing a success mindset, and we're going to learn some real good techniques on how to make it happen. So let's start. We'll start from this side here. Ron, why don't you read first?
The path to success is usually fraught with challenges and obstacles. You believe you have what it takes to succeed. Perhaps success is not in your destiny. How should we address persistent doubts that certain goals might be beyond our capabilities, or that success may not even be possible? Understanding why you are here and what we're designed to achieve can help us gain confidence in our ability to achieve our goals.
Okay, so as we discussed last week, and you can look on the board, in order to set your goals, so the first step to do anything, and this was really done last week, just to recap, was correctly define success. And again, defining success is really living with your inner will. That when they come after 120 at your funeral and they're reading your eulogy, what they'll be reading is the life that you really wanted to live, and you actually lived it every single day. So you really need to define success, which we already did last week. Today we're going to deal with how can you go ahead and create that mission and make that mission possible of living that type of life. Okay, so let's, next, here, Taryn, exercise number 1, page 35.
Read each statement and indicate whether you agree or disagree with it. 1, I will be able to achieve most of the goals that I have set for myself. When facing difficult tasks, I am certain that I will accomplish them. In general, I think that I can obtain outcomes that are important to me. I believe I can succeed at most any endeavor to which I set my mind. I will be able to successfully overcome many challenges. I am confident that I can perform effectively on many different tasks. Compared to other people, I can do most tasks very well. Even when things are tough, I can perform quite well.
Okay, so obviously everyone, wrote down their answers, and the question is, you can see, what you believe and what you feel, what you can get to. The goal of today is obviously whatever level you wrote, the goal of today's class is to bring you up a notch, or maybe 2 or 3. Good. Right? Whatever level it may be. That's the goal of today's class. We're going to try to bring you up a few notches. If you allow yourself. Okay. Huh? It's actually funny, right? Okay, so now let's get right into the lesson. So now, as we said before, the goal today is that you should be able to walk out with a possibility of being successful in the mission. Now, we all know in life, when you want to be successful, there's something which is called a mentor, a coach, someone that you look up to, a trainer, etc. Now, the reality is that if the mentor, the coach, or the trainer that you are looking up to is not living what he's preaching, how successful is he going to be? He's not going to be that successful. You're going to shut down the minute you see him. You imagine you going to someone to, whatever it may be, you want to go on a diet, and you go to the person's totally overweight. You know what I mean? Wrong person. Or you're going to the gym and you want to meet a trainer and the trainer's not fit. Not going to work. So you want to find a mentor and someone that you can look up to. So we always look for mentors, trainers, and people to look up to. Where in the Torah? Because the Torah is talking about you as a human being. The person was checked out. The person is a spiritual athlete that's all the way on par. And from that person, we can learn about a lot of lessons in life. So we are going to explore a personality in the Torah who we all know, who was the patriarch, the third of patriarchs. The patriarch's name was Jacob. So we're going to learn about a story that when Jacob went to look for a wife, he came to a place called Haran. It's a very good story, and we'll see now what happens when he comes to look for this wife. So let's read text 1a.
Jacob said, "The day is yet long. It is not yet time to gather the livestock. Give the sheep to drink and let them go back to pasture." The shepherds responded, "We cannot do so until all the flocks assemble. Then all the shepherds together will roll the boulder off the well's opening, and we shall give water to the sheep." As Jacob was talking with the shepherds, Rachel arrived with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Upon seeing Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and the sheep of his uncle Laban, Jacob approached the well and rolled the boulder off its opening, and he gave the water to the sheep of his uncle Laban.
Okay, so as you can tell, the story is self-explanatory. Where Jacob comes to the well, they're standing around, obviously more than just one shepherd, and they're schmoozing, and he says to them, "Hey guys, hey, welcome, perfect timing. Have a seat. You want to sit right here on the table, right there, or here, either one. You're right here, perfect, right here. We'll recap real quick just to catch you up. We are talking about, last week we spoke about the idea of, we defined our goals. And some of the goals were pretty heavy, deliver inner will. Now the question was, could we achieve? Could we attain that? Look in the first drawer there it might be. In the drawer it should be.
It should be.
Yeah, perfect, excellent. So, how could we attain certain goals? You might say it's too lofty, it's not possible. And the goal of today's class is to learn how it is possible to reach certain goals that you might not have thought that were possible. So we just read a story from Genesis 29:7, where Jacob comes to look for a wife. He comes to the well. There was a bunch of shepherds standing by the well, and Jacob looks at them and says, "Hey, guys, what are you sitting around? Why don't you give your sheep the cattle to drink?" And they said, "Well, there's not enough people here to roll the stone." And this is very fascinating. Look at the story. So as he's talking to them, he doesn't take it off. But then when he sees Rachel he walks over and rolls the stone right off. So the question is a very simple question. What happened here all of a sudden? Like how, the shepherd said we can't do it. And there were several guys. Several guys couldn't do it. And Yaakov walks over, rolls it off. So the question is, how is Yaakov able to do that? What do you think, how Jacob was able to do it? One answer could be?
He believed.
He believed. Okay, that's a good answer. What else?
Trying to impress Rachel.
Huh?
Trying to impress Rachel.
Trying to impress Rachel, okay. What else?
The power of God in him.
Power of God, okay, power. Okay. So let's look on the board. One is power, strong guy, right? They couldn't, he was strong, he can do it. He ate spinach, right? Okay. The other answer could be, he sees Rachel, love kicks in, adrenaline starts flying, and he became this like mighty guy out of nowhere. It's a possibility, right? However, and again, these are two good options, but there still remains a question. Who was reading? Yeah, go ahead, next. Text 1b.
1b?
Yeah.
Jacob saw the heavy boulder sitting on the well's opening. Although he himself was exceptionally powerful, should he not have understood that the shepherds would not be able to roll the boulder off the well? Why then did he urge them to do something that was not within their power to accomplish? We can presume that Jacob would not have spoken deceptively, God forbid. Thus, if he suggested to the shepherds that they give the sheep to drink, they could have done so had they only made an attempt to do so, but they were not interested in trying.
Okay, so in other words, based on this text, what the text is saying is very, very simple. The basic difference between the shepherds, and you can look on the board, is one basic difference. What did the shepherds say? We can't lift it. What did Jacob say?
We could try.
Maybe I can. So there literally is a simple difference, because there is no major difference between Jacob and the shepherds. But one difference there is that the shepherds made a statement, we can't. Now, the reality is, if a person says, I can't do something, what is the percent chance that he will succeed? Huh? Very good. Zero. When you say you can't do something, you have 0% chance of succeeding. When a person says, I can do it, does that mean you're going to do it? No. But what percentage do you have of trying? 100%. You know, I'm not saying I'm doing it. I can do it. Will I succeed? I don't know. But one thing I do know, I have 100% ability to try, and I will try. And that is the basic difference. Here, look at in other words. Here, let's read the next one. Text 2.
A strong sense of efficacy enhances human accomplishment and personal well-being in many ways. People with high assurance in their capabilities approach difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered rather than as threats to be avoided. Such an efficacious outlook fosters intrinsic interest and deep engrossment in activities. They set themselves challenging goals and maintain strong commitment to them. They heighten and sustain their efforts in the face of failure. They quickly recover their sense of efficacy after failures or setbacks. They attribute failure to insufficient effort or deficient knowledge and skills which are acquirable. They approach threatening situations with assurance that they can exercise control over them. Such an efficacious outlook produces personal accomplishments, reduces stress, and lowers vulnerability to depression. In contrast, people who doubt their capabilities shy away from difficult tasks which they view as personal threats. They have low aspirations and weak commitment to the goals they choose to pursue. When faced with difficult tasks, they dwell on their personal deficiencies, on the obstacles they will encounter, and all kinds of adverse outcomes rather than concentrate on how to perform successfully. They slacken their efforts and give up quickly in the face of difficulties. They are slow to recover their sense of efficacy, following failure or setbacks. Because they view insufficient performance as deficient aptitude, it does not require much failure for them to lose faith in their capabilities. They fall easy victim to stress and depression.
Okay, so let's look at the board, and we'll create a little chart. It'll be easier to comprehend the idea. So we're dealing with high efficacy and low efficacy. Okay, someone with high efficacy, how do they view difficult tasks? It's a challenge to be mastered, right? It's a challenge to be mastered.
So
Let's look.
What
Yes.
does efficacy mean?
Let's go through this,
Okay.
and we'll
I hate to be like stupid, but
Try to say it.
no. Efficacy is basically the will to succeed. It's simple English. The will to succeed,
okay,
right? The can do versus the can't do.
okay.
Esteem. Okay, there you go. Right? But again, simple, the will to succeed versus the will not to succeed.
Okay.
Esteem, can versus can't, etc.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, high efficacy views difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered. Low efficacy shies away from difficult tasks, which they view as personal threats. See, it spells it out. Here we go. Second, they set challenging goals. You know, if you have that in your blood and you train that way, you set high goals and you maintain a strong commitment to them. You set the goals, right, and you committed to them. Versus low, on the low side, have low aspirations, the bar is always very low, and weak commitment to goals. And guess what? They ain't going to get too far in life. Now, this doesn't mean, again, as we said before, this does not mean you're going to be successful. This means you're going to try hard. So, high efficacy, they have setbacks. We didn't say they're successful. They have setbacks, but they recover. Why? It didn't work out. Let's clean up. Let's go on to the next thing. Versus if a low efficacy, they give up quickly in the face. The minute there's a small difficulty, they're giving up. And obviously, if they have a setback, it takes a long time for them to get back on their feet. They ain't trying things again for a while. The high side, attribute failure. And here, this happens to be, I think, a very, very key point. Attribute failure to insufficient effort or deficient skills that are acquirable. So someone with high efficacy, and this is really, really key, they never place the blame on somebody else. They're always empowering. In other words, a high efficacy person, I am in charge of my life. I don't need this one, that one, obviously I need God. But the point they're making is, if there was a failure, it's only for one reason. You know what the reason is? I didn't work hard enough. Now, it might look like the person is weak. No, the person is strong. Because what I'm really saying is, if I worked harder, I would be successful. And therefore, it's really up to me to work harder. That's point number one. And number two is, you know what? I don't have the skills, but guess what? I can acquire them. So you're being honest, you're being vulnerable, you're saying, no, you're not saying you're weak, you don't have them. I'm saying I don't have them, which is the truth. But guess what? I can acquire them. So that's real power. Versus the other person, attribute failure to deficiency in aptitude. I'm deficient. Guess what happens? If you say you're deficient, what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing's happening. The fifth difference is, are confident. People they're confident. They have reduced stress and lower vulnerability to depression. That's a good one. I mean, that's big. Unfortunately, the low efficacy easily fall victim to stress and depression. So, in other words, it's very, very clear. It's a whole different mindset. A whole different mindset. In other words, a high efficacy person takes full control of his life, but believes there's a solution to every problem that he has, or he or she has, and if they work hard enough, they will, if they put in the effort, and they go out and acquire the tools, whatever they need, they will be successful. And think about it, they're in an empowering place. And when you're in an empowering place, you're alive. And there's no room for depression. Versus the other one, you think yourself like a failure. And when you think of yourself like a failure, guess what you are? You are a failure. In other words, like this. Let's say you have two people that are given a task to do. So here, let me give you an example. It can be with an adult or a child. You're out, let's say you have two kids at home. and you come back home, and let's say it's 3 o'clock, supper's at 5 o'clock, and you walk into the toy room, and these two kids, made a mess. The Legos, 100 million pieces of Legos all over the place. And you walk in and you say to the two kids, I don't know, Chaim, Sarah, you say, Chaim and Sarah, 3 o'clock, supper's at 5 o'clock, you have 2 hours to clean up, nicely, you have 2 hours to clean up, clean up your playroom, right? And we all have kids, we were kids, right? So one says, I can't do it, right? And the other one says, sure we can do it, right? Sure we can do it. Now, who's right? Huh? They're both right. Because whether they can do it in 2 hours or not, it's irrelevant. It's either going to get done or it's not going to get done. Right? It's either going to happen or not. But one thing we do know is one person believes they can clean it up, whether they can or they can't. And they might successful, might not. And the other one doesn't believe. Who's right? They're both right. It's not one is right and one is wrong. We're not talking about whether it's going to get done or not. We're not God. No one knows what's going to happen by 5 o'clock. It's either going to be done or not. But one thing we do know, one has the will to make it happen and one doesn't. The one that has the will to make it happen, if you had a vision and you had to bet who's going to be more successful in life, who's going to be more successful? The one that's going to says I can do it, even though he might not do it.
You get the third son.
Yeah.
Like mine. He says, I can do it, but you do it better than me.
There you go. He's going to be a real salesman, right? He's going to be a real businessman. He's going to be a real businessman. Okay. Here we go. So here we have so far, right? In order to be successful, we said you have to correctly define your success, which was already last week. Step number 2, which is for this week, is you have to be that child that creates adopts. It's really an adoption because we don't know if you're going to succeed or not. A success mindset that basically says, yes, we're going to do it. Now, you might say, come on, be honest, you can't do it. It's not about doing it. See, and here's a key word. Our job in life is not about accomplishments. Our job is about doing. Our job in life is about doing, not accomplishing. Think about it. I say to you, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm going to work, right? You didn't say you're going to be successful at work. And you didn't say you're going to make money or you're going to be profitable, because you don't know if you're going to be successful. You don't know if you're going to make a profit. You might have a loss tomorrow. But one thing you do know, you're going to work. Work means I'm going to do it. What happens? That's already up to me. It's up to a lot of moving parts. It's partners, workers, God, blessing, luck, whatever. But one thing I do know, I will be working. So a success mindset means we're going to do it. Will we be successful? Who knows? But that's not our job. And we always say this. It's not our job to finish. We say in ethics of our fathers. It's not your job, lo alecha ligmor, right? Your job is not to finish it. Your job is basically to show up and do the work. Whether you believe you're going to succeed or not, it's irrelevant. Because the minute you start thinking of the end product, now you're going to get into trouble. Because now you have the brain's going to play games with you. That's not my job. My job, I'm a day worker. I'm here to show up and I'm here to do my part. Okay. Now, so and that is basic. So now, taking this concept, so now we need to move forward and continue on the success mindset. So as we said before, we have to find mentors in the Torah. So we found one story before with Jacob and the well, where basically Jacob basically said we can do it, and sure enough he was able to do it. But now we're going to find another story. Let's read next, page 40, text number 3.
Jacob remained alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When the man saw that he could not prevail against Jacob, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip became dislocated as they wrestled. The man then said, "Let me go, for the morning star has risen." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you have blessed me." "What is your name?" the man asked. "Jacob," came the response. "No longer shall your name be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled against an angel of God and against men, and you have prevailed."
So here, let's look at the chart. It explains it very, very well. Okay, so our name, by the way, we all have the same name, right? We're the people of Israel, the land of Israel. Where did the name come from? There were 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When Jacob fought with Esau's angel, he fought with him. They wrestled, right? There was a wrestling match. And let me ask you a question like this. If you were out in the street and someone comes to start fighting, okay, someone's fighting, you have to protect yourself, right? But what happens if the angel of God shows up to fight with you? your reaction is, it's over. I'm not even going to start this one. He's the angel of God, right? How am I going to be successful? Did Jacob say that? No. He was. Can you imagine? I mean, think of Jacob's mindset. The angel of God. Where I mean, the reality, if it's angel of God, you have a chance of winning. It's not about winning. No, it's not about winning. Jacob knew I had to fight him. See, that's the key word. It wasn't about winning. If you think about winning, you're going to give up. Hey, Jacob knew he's coming. God's angel's coming to wrestle me. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to wrestle.
How do you know he was an angel of God?
What do you mean? Oh, because he obviously identified himself as an angel of God.
Oh, okay.
So what's it here? So Israel is made up of two words. The Israel comes from sarisa, right? Where he struggled. You have struggled against an angel of God and against men, right? Israel, and you have prevailed. So there's 2 points. The quality the Jewish people have is 2 things. One is that we struggle. We're willing to struggle. That's the mindset we're going to be, right? And we will prevail. When we struggle and we know we're going to prevail and we do prevail, then we're a proud Yisrael. That's what Am Yisrael is, right? The nation of the Jewish people. That we struggle and we prevail. Okay. Now, obviously, if we struggle and we prevail, and the mindset is that we're going to succeed, just like Jacob got to the well, guess what? We're rolling it off. Did he think he could roll it off? It's irrelevant when he thought he could roll it off, but he knew he was going to roll it off. And guess what? Sometimes God helps you. You know, we say you put your finger in, you do your part, God will help you finish it off. But you gotta put your finger in hot water a little bit. And there's many stories, which I don't want to bring in other stories because obviously it's not in the lesson. But you know, when the Jews came to the water, right? One person jumped in, and then God split the thing. But the point is, we have to do our part. Once we do our part, then obviously we'll be successful. But here we go. But the reality is, we also have to know the enemy, because in each and every one of us, we have a little voice, and to some people it's a little bigger, that tell us we're not going to be successful. But that voice that comes to you, which again, it's not a holy voice, but it's still a voice. We have an animal soul. That voice that comes to you and tells you you're not going to succeed, you got to know what that voice tells you. Because by knowing what it tells you, we can take it, we can analyze it, we can take it apart and say, guess what? I know your trick, but I'm not going to listen to you. The only way you can know the trick and agree you're not going to listen to it is what? Only if you know it. So I'm gonna do it on the screen for a second, then we'll do it inside. What holds us back? Okay, step number 1. Distorted self-perception. What does that mean? Very simple. We all have a perception of ourselves. Now, certain things we perceive are honest. We have a certain perception of ourselves which is honest, but then we have a distortion. Let's do it inside, and then let's do this one inside first, and we'll go to the other ones. Okay, so we're looking at, and again, I told you, the goal is to learn stories from the Torah, and the reason is because these are real stories that happened. So there's a famous story that happened to the Jewish people, and that is that when you know, the way the slides go, I'll do this. Let's go through 3, and then we'll go back each one separately. The second thing that holds us back is past failures. When a person has many failures, what happens? What do you think automatically? I'm going to continue failing, right? And the third thing is, I don't have the ability to do it. I don't have the ability, I have the tools, etc. So these are valid reasons. So we're going to analyze every one of them, and then we're going to see how we can overcome it. So let's deal with the first one. The first one we're going to talk about is basically a distorted self-perception. That's text 4. It's a story of the Jewish people sending 12 spies to the land of Israel. 10 come back with a report that there's no way we can do it. 2 say we can do it. Who's right? As you said before, they're both right. But what's the source of the people that said, what's the source of why the people said we can't do it? The source is a distorted self-perception, and you're going to see the way it's literally in their language in text number 4. Text number 4. Who's reading? Your turn. Text 4.
The spies from what? You want me to read?
Yes, yes, the spies displayed.
The fruit of the land before Jewish, and they say to Moses, we went to the land to which you send us. Indeed, it flows with milk and honey. This is its truth. Whatever, the inhabitants of the land are mighty, the cities are extremely great for feast, and we also saw the descendant of giants. The Amalekites dwell in south land, while the Hittites, the Jesuitites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountainous region. The Canaanites dwell on the coast and alongside the Jordan. Caleb silenced the people to hear the word he will speak in support of Moses, and they proclaimed, we will surely go up, taking possession of the land. We can surely conquer. But the men who went up and scouted the land alongside this disagree. We are unable to go up against the Canaanites. Nation, for they are strong than we are. They proceed to present a disparaging report about the land which they had scouted, telling the children of Israel, the land that we passed through is explored, diverse, is inhabited, and all the people we saw there were extraordinarily large. They were so giant of immense height in our eyes. We seemed like grasshoppers, and so they consider us too.
Okay, let's look at the board. Here we go. So you have 12 people on the same mission. 12 people on the same mission. 10 spies come back with a negative report, and 2 come back with a positive report. What did the 10 spies say? And we just read it inside. What did the spies say? We seemed like grasshoppers. Hold on. Did they say somebody called them a grasshopper? No. They said, we seem like grasshoppers. Now, if you feel like you're a grasshopper, I mean, think about this for a moment. If you dilute yourself to a grasshopper, you think you're going to be too successful in life? You think you can even show up at work? You think you're going to do anything? You're a grasshopper. I mean, listen, this is the way they thought about themselves. Now, is that an honest self-perception? To them it was. That's the way they felt. I mean, you can't blame them. They felt they were grasshoppers. Caleb, on the other hand, Caleb and Joshua, Caleb on the other hand, what was his comment? We can surely conquer it. I mean, look at the day and night attitude. 10 people feel like grasshoppers, they're not doing anything. Caleb didn't think he was a grasshopper. He thought he was one of the tribal leaders, a messenger of God. And guess what? We're going to conquer it. Done. Look at the difference. The 10 spies had a distorted self-concept. Caleb had a healthy self-concept. Does that mean Caleb was going to be successful? No, but at least he had the concept, which is healthy. Guess what? We have a mission. We're going to go for it.
Isn't it in the reverse order? Because he believed more in Moshe and in God. That's why he went and came back with a confident, and they put it up to themselves. And would they be able to, as opposed to Caleb, when he knew that God is going to let him?
Yeah, fine. So that's the source. That's the source of why the person feels that way. You know, obviously he went and he studied and he prayed and in the holy places, etc. So he worked on his self-confidence and he worked on his spiritual connection. But again, that's the reason for it. We're talking Lamaisa, the reality. One person had a distorted self-concept, and versus the other person had, unfortunately, fortunately had a very healthy self-concept, and that's why he was obviously successful. Okay, so now let's read text number 5. Go right ahead, text 5.
As I studied the negative self-image problem, I found that the most profound feelings of low esteem paradoxically occur most often in those who are in reality most gifted and competent. It appears that the person who develops a negative self-image sees himself as if he were looking through a trick lens, which distorts the perception in such a manner that the person sees himself as the opposite of what he actually is.
Okay, so in other words, as you see very, very clearly, you can have really, really successful people that have a distorted view of themselves. I mean, because the fact is here, the reality is, everybody has a part of God within them, so we can all be successful. But if you have a distorted self-perception, how are you going to succeed? Okay, but let's focus on the obstacle first. So the first obstacle dealing with is somebody that has a distorted self-concept. And unfortunately, many times, we go through life and we have these distorted self-concept of ourselves that does not allow us to go forward. The second issue is, as we mentioned before already, was a person goes through failures in life. Now, what happens when you go through multiple failures and multiple disappointments, you lose like a certain sparkle to be vulnerable. What?
Zest.
You lose the zest, you lose the vulnerability, you lose the spark of life, right? Because what happens, you just almost give up in a certain way. Here, text number 6.
Rabbi Huna said, when a person transgresses and repeats it a second time, it becomes permitted for him. Talmud asks, can one really think that a repeat offender is permitted to transgress? Rather, Rabbi Huna said, is saying that the deed becomes permissible in the eyes of the offender.
So in other words, here, look at the board, you see? You just turn over already. You just knew you did it 20 times, you failed, so you're just going to fail right from the beginning. So you're not starting off with the same, somebody they're trying out a new job or a new mission, a new project, whatever, you put your right foot forward, right? Guess what, we're going to succeed. What happens if you try the same business already 10 times, and it didn't work? You're not giving it all you got, because in your mind you already gave up before you even started. You gave up before you started. Why? Because you tried so many times. Okay, that was the second problem. Now we're going to learn about the third issue. Over here, 1 second. I will always fail at this. All right, I'm a failure. You see the messages? Okay, the third issue is, look at this. It's a nice picture. I can't reach it. What do you want? Now right? I can't reach it. So, and that's an honest self-appraisal. This is like a tough one, because the fact is, look, could I reach it? I'm, let's say, 6 foot tall, and the knob is 12 foot higher than me. How can I reach it? So we're going to explore now this based on a very, very powerful story with a rabbi called Rabbi Akiva. Let's read it inside, and we will explain it. Let's see. Anyone back there want to read?
Sure.
Go right ahead. Text 7a.
Rabbi Akiva was originally a shepherd in the employ of Ben Sullivan. The latter's daughter, Rachel, seeing how modest and noble he was, said to him, "If I were to betroth to you, would you leave home to study at a Torah academy?" "Yes," he replied. They secretly married. When Rachel's father heard of the marriage, he banished her from his home and disowned her.
Okay, so here you see, this is a very, very powerful story, and it's a very good story. But what's really interesting is that Kalba Savua, who was the father of Rachel, the father-in-law of Rabbi Akiva, and Rachel really both wanted the same thing out of the guy. Kalba Savua, the father-in-law, wanted a son-in-law, a Talmudic scholar. Rachel wanted a husband, a Talmudic scholar. Isn't that interesting? They both wanted the same thing. The difference was, Kalba Savua said, he's an ignoramus, not happening. And Rachel said, go to yeshiva, it will happen, right? Now the question is, okay, that's Kalba Savua, and that's Rachel. What did Rabbi Akiva think about himself? Let's read next story, 7b. Anyone back here want to read still?
What were Rabbi Akiva's origins? Tradition states that he was 40 years old and had not learned at all. Once he was standing by a well, and he noticed a hollowed out stone. "Who hollowed out this stone?" he asked. "The waters," the reply came. "They steadily dripped on it each day." When Rabbi Akiva expressed surprise at this, they asked him, have you not read the verse, "Stone are eroded by waters," in Job 14:19. At once, Rabbi Akiva applied the logic to himself. If pebble waters can erode that which is rock hard, how much more can words of Torah which are taught as iron mold my heart, which is flesh and blood. Rabbi Akiva immediately returned to study Torah.
Okay, so what's interesting is actually that Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, agreed with his father-in-law. That what? That he can't study Torah. Rabbi Akiva originally, from the story, believed he couldn't study. But something changed. What changed? He had an experience. You ever have these experiences? And he sees the water dripping on the rock, which a rock is hard, mass, and the water drips, cracks it. So he goes, oh my gosh, if the rock can crack, my head, which is not a rock, I hope, right? So they say, right, the brain is like a rock, but can crack too. Even with a rock, it can crack, right? We know it's not. So in other words, originally he thought like his father-in-law, but after he saw that, he knew what? That he could go ahead and be successful. And sure enough, he goes to yeshiva by the encouragement and advice of his wife. That's why it's good to have a good wife that will push you. If your wife is not pushing you, then you know it's not a great wife like Akiva's wife. And she pushed him. He went to yeshiva, and let's read text 7c. Who in the back that didn't read? Okay, actually, Scott, we missed you. Why don't you read 7c?
When Rabbi Akiva returned home after 24 years at the yeshiva, he was accompanied by 24,000 disciples. Rachel heard of his arrival and went out to meet him. On approaching him, she fell on her face and kissed his feet. His attendants, who did not recognize her, were about to thrust her aside, when Rabbi Akiva cried to them, "Leave her be, my Torah and yours are hers."
Okay, so in other words, it's a beautiful story, it's a lot of message there. But for this course, so the reality is like this: was Kalba Savua, who believed he couldn't learn, and Rabbi Akiva originally thought that he couldn't learn, were they wrong? No. The answer is no. They both believed that he didn't have the ability. Are they right? They believe that. The reality is, afterwards he went ahead and he studied and he was successful. So in other words, the fact that they believed that he wouldn't succeed, was that an honest self-appraisal? Absolutely. Afterwards he went ahead and he broke that. How did he do that? How do you break that? In other words, you see clearly that it's 100% possible to go ahead and break something you're saying it's impossible to reach. How can we go ahead and reach that? So here we're now going to go back to the beginning of the Torah and to see the power that we really have. In other words, do we have the power to overcome a skewed self-perception? Do we have the power to overcome past failures? And do we have the power to overcome technical abilities that we believe we don't have? And obviously, the goal of this class is to teach you that we do, but not to teach you just based on philosophy, but teach you based on who we really are as a human being, with the gift that God gave us. So now we're going to read text 8, and before we read this, you're reading about yourself. You are reading about the way God created each and every one of us, and hopefully you're going to learn something about yourself that you didn't know before, and from a deep perspective that will allow you to experience more of the talents that we each have. Because you want to know who you are, besides the fact your name and what you wear and where you live, but you want to know the real qualities that you have. So this is a very, very important. The next two pieces are very, very important because it's going to tell you who we are. Okay, let's start again from here, Ron.
Okay.
Text 8.
God created the human being in his image, in the image of God. He created him, male and female. He created them. The human being was created in God's image and thereby is similar to God, may be blessed. The human being created in the image of God has the distinctive characteristic of being autonomous, like God, who is free to do as he wishes. So too, we human beings have the power to do as we wish. We have choice.
Okay, so in other words here, let's look at the board. We were created in the image of God. What does that mean? What type of dignity do we have? Not external, but we have intrinsic. we were created as humans, right? We are a human agent to experience that dignity. Now, what does that mean as follows? God says, I created you, verse in Genesis, right in the beginning, in the image of God. Now, what does that mean? So in order to understand what it means you were created in the image of God, so you have to know, what does God mean? In other words, when you think of God, what do you think of as God? What is God? What is God?
Everything.
God is everything. Okay, let's continue. What is God?
Us.
Huh?
Us. No.
Well, us too, yes. God is everything. So it's us also, correct? Huh? Infinite, okay. Yes. What else? What else is God?
Supreme being.
Supreme being, okay.
Free will.
Free will. Who said that?
Me.
Very good. In other words, all these things you mentioned is correct. What God really is, since God is infinite, God could do, and the word is anything. Anything. Anything and everything. In other words, there's nothing that God cannot do. Now, he doesn't necessarily mean he has to choose to do that every moment, but God is free to choose to do whatever he wants. Obviously, God speaks the truth and he's kind, but could he speak the untruth? For sure, because then you would be limiting him. Could he be not kind? Sure, because then you would be limiting him. God could do and be anything. Why? Because he's God. Now, and the ultimate greatest power is that he has free will, free to do anything. Now, since God is free to do anything, and we were created in the image of God, we were created in the image of God, could we do anything?
Yes.
Yes. This is a instruction. This is, well, it's not this, it's based on the Torah. This is the instruction manual to our biggest gift that we have. Anyone ever know this before? That we have a part of God, and just like God can do anything, very, very important, we can do anything. Is there anything that you want to do? You can do it. Hopefully you do good things with this tremendous power. I mean, unfortunately, people use this tremendous power for negative things. But the reality is, we have the ability to do anything. Free will. We have to want it. We have to want it. But once we want it, we can do it. We have to want to do. Once we want, we can do. Why? Not because we're this technologically advanced human being. No, because we are given the gift of the image of God. We each have that within us. And if we tap in and we access the image of God, guess what? There's nothing that's stopping us. If obviously we don't tap into it, it's like you have a car, right? And you need a battery to start the car, but the cables aren't connected to the battery. The battery's there, the car is there. It's not going to start. So you need to connect the car through the cables to the battery. The same idea. We have the power to do anything. We need to connect to that power, and then we could do anything if we want. Now, the reality is that it's always important to know the other side of perspective. Now, we believe it because it says so in the Torah. Obviously, there's another whole way of thinking that says no. We are a programmed human being. We can only do certain things. We're limited, etc. There's a thinking of that. So, I mean, let's see text number 10. Who's next?
Free will is an illusion. Our wills are simply not out of our own making. Thoughts and intentions emerge from background causes of which we are unaware and over which we exert no conscious control. We do not have the freedom we think we have. Free will is actually more than an illusion, or less, in that it cannot be made conceptually coherent. Either our wills are determined by prior causes, and we are not responsible for them, or they are the product of chance and we are not responsible for them. If a man's choice to shoot the president is determined by a certain pattern of neural activity, which is in turn the product of our prior causes, perhaps an unfortunate coincidence of bad genes, an unhappy childhood, lost sleep, and cosmic ray bombardment, what can it possibly mean to say that his will is free? No one has ever described a way in which mental and physical processes could arise that would attest to the existence of such freedom. Most illusions are made of sterner stuff than this. The popular conception of free will seems to rest on two assumptions. One, that each of us could have behaved differently than we did in the past, and two, that we are the conscious source of most of our thoughts and actions in the present. As we are about to see, however, both of these assumptions are false. But the deeper truth is that free will doesn't ever correspond to any subjective fact about us, and introspection soon proves as hostile to the idea as the laws of physics are. Seeming acts of volition merely arise spontaneously, whether caused, uncaused, or probabilistically inclined to make no difference, and cannot be traced to a point of origin in our conscious minds. A moment or two of serious self-scrutiny, and you might observe that you no more decide the next thought you think than the next thought I write.
Okay, so obviously, they didn't put in here to get anyone depressed, but it's important to know the non-Jewish way of thinking. If you ask me, it's a very, very depressing piece. To be honest, I don't know if I wrote the course, I would have put it in here, because it's not a Jewish thing at all, but I guess it's good to know the other side. In other words, what this person is saying is that we're nobody. We're nobody. Why are we here? We're puppets. Everything is based on things of the past. Everything has to do external to us. How do you feel about that? Honestly, if you think about it, I don't think it feels great.
We wouldn't be here in this class if we said that.
Look at it, right? We wouldn't feel great. Look at the board. All these different things, decisions, etc. We're not responsible for our choices. We're just like a nobody. We're just like a ping pong ball. Judaism's a position is no. No matter our character or experience, Jewish belief is, no, you're in charge. You have 100% freedom to choose your path. And again, freedom to choose doesn't mean you're going to choose the right thing. Freedom to choose means I have freedom to choose. Here, I can go to the right. I can go to the left. I can do nothing. The person before said, Harris, you don't have a choice. Wherever you're going, that's where you were programmed in some computer system, and it has nothing to do with it's not your life. That's not an empowering life. God says, no. You can go to the right, you can go to the left, and you can choose. Now, God is very interesting, and we'll read it inside. God says, I have a preference, by the way. Please go to the right. Please go to the right. Not only do I have a preference, he even says, God says, he begs us. And you know what he calls the right? He calls the right life, good, to motivate you. But you still have freedom of choice. You can say, listen, God, I know that's life. I know it's good. I want to go on my journey here. And many people chose to go on some journey to the left. And unfortunately, they went to the left. Sometimes they come back. But the point is that we, as being in the image of God that can do anything, we have the power and the ability to choose. Let's read it inside. Text number 11.
I call today upon the heaven and the earth as witnesses that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life.
In other words, so God is telling you, you have both. Blessing, curses, right? Life and death. But I'm telling you, please choose, obviously, choose life. Let's see the way Maimonides discusses it a little more at length. Okay, next. Text 12.
If God were to preordain that a person be righteous or wicked, or if there were to exist something innate in a person's nature that compelled him or her toward a specific path, conviction, trait, or deed, how could God command us through the prophets to do this and not to do this, to improve our behavior or not to follow our wicked inclination? After all, from the very beginning, a certain outcome was preordained by God or dictated by the person's nature. Moreover, of what use would be the entire Torah? And by what measure of justice could God punish the wicked and reward the righteous?
Okay, so let's look at the board. Nice picture. Okay. Belief in God and that He created us in His image dictates free choice. Again, if we believe in God, the infinite God, this God created us, therefore we have free choice. In other words, here, let's look at the other side. If you lack a belief in God, eliminates the ability to choose. So in other words, when you believe in God, that God's infinite, and God can choose to do anything, He created me in His image, and therefore I'm free to choose. And because I'm free to choose, I can choose to do anything, and if I choose to do it, I'll be successful. In other words, like this. Ultimately, and God did not make everyone the same. If you were in the tiny class before, right? Everyone is unique. Everyone is unique. Now, therefore, because everyone's unique, some people, certain things are easier for them, and certain things are harder for them. And the next person, certain things are easier, certain things are harder. But ultimately, could everybody choose to live a good, blessed, and happy life? Yes. Absolutely. Now, to some people, it's going to be easier. To some people, it's going to be harder. But eventually, everyone can get there. Eventually, everyone will get there. In other words, take a child and take any grade in school. There are certain kids, they walk into class, they don't even listen to the lesson. They read through their book, and boom, they can take a test and get 100 on there without even studying. Certain kids have to listen and they have to do the homework, and then they're okay. Certain kids, you need to get them a tutor, right? And they have to study 20 times before the test, and they can get the 100. So the point is, everybody can ultimately get to the same place. The question is, what is it going to take to get there? But there's nobody that can say, I can't get there. We can all get there. The question is, what's going to take? Why can we get there? Because we have the infinite power of God, and because we have the infinite power of God, we'll get there. Some people, again, the road's bumpier, some people it's more smoother, etc. But ultimately, everybody will get there. Now, the reality is that not only is this a Jewish thing, that, what are we saying? We're saying is that even though it's not possible, everyone says it's not possible, Judaism says, no, it is possible. Freedom of choice. You can choose to do it. It's not in the cards, it is in the cards. Be committed, choose to do it, and eventually you'll get there. You're going to see in the video now that even science says that you can create new reality, new channels that really never existed and you never thought you had. Here, let's watch the video because they explain it actually very well in the video, and this way, here we go.
No, the kids are so young.
What? Yeah.
Maybe we can start with making sure everybody understands what is neuroplasticity.
Ever heard the expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Our brains work by sending electronic signals racing through billions of pathways between brain nerve cells called neurons. But there is a brilliant method to the chaos. And highly localized areas of the brain relate to specific functions or abilities, allowing scientists to identify a precise brain map. The prevailing scientific consensus for much of the 20th century was that our neural pathways and our brain maps are fixed by the time we reach adulthood. Which means that if you were intent on learning new tricks, the scientific odds were stacked heavily against you.
Well, you know, it used to be thought that the brain was like a computer, a piece of hardware you could think it's unalterable in an adult life. We now know that that's completely wrong.
Michael Merzenich is a world-leading neuroscientist and professor emeritus at the University of California, San Francisco. In 1968, he began the process of revolutionizing neuroscience by proving that brains are not rigid at all. Brains generate new neural cells and new neural pathways throughout life.
This capacity to change your brain is with you as long as you are alive.
Merzenich amputated a monkey's middle finger and then proved that the monkey's brain had rapidly deleted all association between the clusters of neurons previously associated with the amputated finger. Instead, nearby regions of neurons that served as brain maps for the monkey's remaining fingers had extended their pathways to fill the void. Thus was born the science of neuroplasticity, the ability of neurons to modify and grow. In fact, the brain is always changing, and actually does so each time we learn something new. Behavior, environment, thought, and emotion all introduce neurological change, with significant implications for healthy development, learning, memory, and recovery. In short, we are limited to neither our past nor our present.
I'd like to tell everybody around the world watching right now that just recognize that you have these powers within you. And you take this moment, take this day to be the day in which you decide you're actually going to change your life in a positive way under your control for the better. Because you have the power to do that.
Okay, so as you see clearly from a scientific perspective, that you can go ahead and take and develop total new paths, paths that was not there before. As you use your brain, you study, it opens up new areas, and it's like physical exercise, right? Creates new blood to new streams, and so, which allows you to live healthier and live longer and happier, etc. The same thing also when a person studies, right, and you meditate, it opens up new areas. So that's the same idea here, that when a person basically says, no, you can't do it, you're not going to be able to get further. When you say, no, let's think about how we can do it, obviously it happens. So let's go, now let's take this concept and go to here. Okay, we can actually, let's do it on the board for a second. Okay. Remember Ben Kabbalah Savua, the story of Ben Kabbalah Savua, who didn't believe his son-in-law can be successful? Why? Because he basically, current ability, he came to a wall, right? We can't do anything, correct? Look at the picture. You see, where can he go? There's a wall. Rachel, on the other hand, she created a whole new line that didn't exist. Notice his platform was ended. But what did Rachel do? No. Let's get him back into yeshiva. Let him sit there. Let him study. And guess what happens? She broke new frontiers. Total new frontiers. Here, let's continue further. So what did we say before? What holds us back? What holds us back? A distorted self-perception or inability. Now, what happens when you introduce free choice into a distorted self-perception? If you say, you know what, we're not going to be successful, and I tell you, I got it. You don't believe, like in the case with the 10 spies, that we're going to conquer the land. Makes sense. I got what you're holding. But do you still have, with the power that God gave you, free choice to nevertheless go ahead and go for it? Absolutely. Or in the case where you say, I don't have any ability to do it. Agreed, you have no ability. That's what you're holding. I'm not arguing with your reality, but can you push yourself and with your free choice, work at it? And again, I didn't tell you to succeed at it. I asked you to try for it. Go for it. In other words, if you take any student, the student says, I don't understand it, I'll never get it. But so you could say, well, what do you tell them? You are going to get it? They say they can't get it. I'm not asking you to get it. I'm asking you to put the time in. Because eventually, if you put enough time in, you will succeed. Eventually, right, the repetition and the working at it, something will break. Something will break. Let's go on to one more screen. Okay, so, and this is an interesting concept. The Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt. Now, Egypt is the country. That's the country. The name for Egypt in Hebrew is called Mitzrayim. That's the name. If you ask me, what is Egypt in Hebrew? Mitzrayim. Now, what's interesting, we know that the Hebrew language is very, very powerful. What does that mean is very powerful? That if you have a word for a country, that tells you a lot about the country. Like, for example, take your name. Your name is not just your name so someone can call you. That actually describes the type of soul you have. And if someone was able to really understand knows the soul levels, like if there's many people, if you tell them your name, they'll tell you all about your soul. He said, how does this guy know me? He doesn't really know you. He knows you based on your name. Your parents were given the spiritual powers to give you that name based on the type of soul that you have. Etc. So Mitzrayim is the name of the country. But Mitzrayim, why is Egypt called Mitzrayim? Because if you give a look, the same we didn't change any letters. We didn't change any letters. The same word. If you take away the vowels, same thing. We changed the vowels. Why? Because what is the shoirish of Mitzrayim? It comes from the word of Meitzar. What does Meitzar mean? Limitations. So Mitzrayim is limitations. So when the Jewish people were in Egypt, what does it mean they were in Egypt? They had a limiting perspective. They did not think that they could be released from Egypt. They didn't think it. Ask anyone when you're in Egypt, could you leaving? No. Why? Because the mind is closed. And what happens is, when the mind is closed, you know what's happening? Nothing. Nothing. So what happens is, if you have your same old thinking, I'm stuck, it's not going to work, it's terrible, you know what results you're going to get? Same results. Now, if you want to have different results, you got to change your thinking. Now, if the thinking is, well, all the negative stuff, it's the same thinking in a different package. So you got to change the thinking. Now, in order for the Jewish people to leave Egypt, what does it mean leaving Egypt? Well, you physically left Egypt. If you left Egypt and you have still the same mindset, you're still in Egypt. Leaving Egypt means changing the limited old way of thinking. Open new ways of thinking. And let's read inside, text 14a.
These are the names of the sons of Israel who are coming to Egypt with Jacob, each man along with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah.
Okay, so now what's interesting is the Jewish people came to Egypt in the book of Bereshit, in Genesis. This verse is in the beginning of Exodus. And what does it say? These are the names of the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, that are coming now to Egypt. Hello? They came several portions ago. So what does it mean they came now? Let's read text 54a. What does it mean they came now?
Israel is so named because you have struggled against an angel of God and against men, and you have prevailed. It is understood then that on the level of Israel, there is no possibility for a descent to Egypt, i.e. limitations in boundary, and there is even less a possibility for exile in Egypt in the simple sense. Accordingly, we can explain why Scripture phrases their descent to Egypt in the present tense, those who are coming to Egypt. For even though it had been a long time since they had arrived in Egypt, it was as if on that very day they had entered Egypt. The children of Israel received as an inheritance all the things the patriarchs had attained, including the attainments of Israel, who is considered to be the greatest of the patriarchs. On account of the aspect of Israel, which connotes struggle and prevailing, that is within the children of Israel, and which constitutes their true identity, they have no connection to Egypt at all. The coming into Egypt is therefore something novel for them, since essentially they do not belong there. Therefore, even when they are present in Egypt, the Egyptian exile or the various subsequent exiles, including this final exile, for many years, it is as if on that very day they had entered Egypt. The children of Israel always transcend Egypt, and their presence there is always surprising, as if they had arrived that very day.
Okay, so in other words, what you see clearly, what they're explaining here is as follows. we, by default, who we are in our internal self, in our ingrained self, in our true self, as we read before, we are in the image of God, and therefore in our natural state we are free people. We are free people. We do have messages or voices in our head. Some people have like a whole board meeting of voices. But we have voices in our head that tell us we can't do this, we can't do that, we're not going to be successful, in the past you weren't successful. And here's the key word, all those voices are, underline, imposed. That is not the true who we are. Our true sense of self, we are infinite, we have freedom to choose to do anything. All the things that tell you no is what? Is all self-imposed. It's like if you have, let's say, for example, a glass jar, and you have inside the glass jar, for example, pure water, right? And it's pure water from a spring, and you close it. And I put on a sticker, apple juice. Did the water become apple juice? No. No. It didn't become apple juice. It's water. But it says on the jar apple juice. And the answer is it's only a sticker. Just like I put it on, I can take them off. Matter of fact, they have now the labels that they make them where they go on, you can peel them right off. They're like, they put them on, so you can take them right off. So just because it says apple juice on the bottle doesn't mean it's apple juice. What's in the bottle? That's the only question. That bottle is pure water. So the fact that it says a sticker that's on, to take off the sticker. Same thing also. We, in our nature, we can do anything. The fact that we have these labels that say we can't do this, we can't do that, hello, is that a label? Or is that who we are? Like the analogy, look on the board. They have, for example, you take a bird, right? Everyone knows a bird can fly. A bird can fly. Now, what happens if you take a bird and you put him in a cage, and you don't let him, and you see this type of cage, and you feed him from the cage. He's there for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year. Put him there for a long time. You know what happens after a couple of, again, every bird is different, but you know what happens after a certain period of time? He thinks that he can only fly in that few feet where the cage is. And after as you open up the cage, he just can't fly. Now, the reality is, could he fly or can't he fly? Sure he can fly. But he got himself accustomed and he got himself constrained that he can only go so far.
It's the neuroscience that his brain adapted to this.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. So in other words, so the limitations is not really who we are. We are really free people that can do anything. Here. Our true identity is always transcendence. Now, what holds us back? What do we think we said before? What is past failures, right? Now, does the past really define you? No, it shouldn't define you. So that's like the label of apple juice on a bottle of water. Hello, you can take that label and peel it right off and get a nice label, purified water, and that's what it is. The label, all these messages don't define you. You know what defines you? The verse in the Torah where God said that you were created in the image of God, and therefore you know what you are? You're in the image of God, and because you're in the image of God, you can do whatever you want. The fact that you were told, like maybe even a teacher or a parent, or who knows, it tells you can't do it. Does that really mean you can't do it? No, because God told you you could do it. And God told you who you really are. So whether someone told you, or you told yourself, or based on an experience, guess what? That is not really who you are. You are a gifted human being that can do anything you put your mind and heart to. You have to be willing to put your mind and heart to it. You put the work, do the work. Does that mean it's going to happen instantaneously? No. No, things don't happen instantaneously. Things take a while. But if you put the effort in, you will succeed. Sometimes you have to pray, beg God, and so on and so forth. But eventually, you'll break through. Eventually, you'll break through. You got to be willing to do the work. Okay, we're holding student page 56, exercise number 2. Who wants to read that?
Lesson 2.
Go ahead. Exercise number 2. Is there exercise number 2? Let's read it out loud. I'll read it. Refer to responses to the opening exercise, right? We had those questions. Which ideas from today's class can you work on and incorporate into your self-image to help you adopt a success mindset and achieve your slated goals? In other words, in lesson 1 we had our goals. In the beginning we spoke about, different things that we don't think we can do this, etc. We right in the beginning of your class. Based on today's course that we just learned, that we are created in the image of God. We have freedom of choice, and we can be like Jacob. We can be like Akiva with the inspiration of his wife, right? We can succeed. And the question is, obviously, which items could you pick up a notch? All right, let's listen to the board.
Mission possible. 1. Fundamental to success is the belief that success is possible. Conversely, one of the greatest impediments to success is the belief that we cannot succeed. This is often the result of a distorted self-image, repeated past failures, or an objective lack of skills or experience. 2. We are created in the image of God, so we possess the divine feature of absolute freedom. We exert control over our lives and circumstances. 3. Our brains are plastic. Learning and experiences rewire our brains. Tasks, skills, feelings, and thoughts become easier when we do them more often. Understanding that we can change things about ourselves heightens our ability to succeed. 4. Just as the Jews were not defined or spiritually limited by their enslavement in Egypt, we are not defined by the limitations and obstacles we face. Obstacles can be overcome, even if they are self-created and have long been part of our lives. Next week, we will continue with step 3, creative thinking and solutions. The key to success often lies in our ability to break free from the way we think about an issue and our ability to come up with new ideas. But can we all be creative? Is it a special gift or talent possessed only by some?
No.
Right?
No.
What?
Can it be defined by yourself? The answer is you can do whatever you want to do. You have free choice.
Right, correct. Obviously, right. But the goal is really to pick up tools and how actually to be creative, because that next week is a whole different issue. It's more about being creative. But yeah, based on today's class, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want. Agreed. The sky is the limit.
I have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.